Welcome into Locked On Phillies. The Phils had an offensive explosion last night. Kyle Schwarber goes nuclear, and they're in a playoff spot halfway through the season. We'll update you on all the latest from the Phillies on today's Locked On Phillies.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. I've been talking Phillies baseball for years over on 97.5 The Fanatic. Happy to be here as your host of Locked On Phillies. I want to thank you for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Blue Nile. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Sports listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement. Use code Locked On at checkout. Now I'm going to just level with you for a second. Listen, we all make mistakes. We're all humans. Podcasters make mistakes too. People who cover the Phillies make mistakes too. I just recorded a wonderful 25-minute episode with absolutely no audio. No, it was just a video of me saying stuff that you can't hear. So can't use it for a podcast, can't use it for a video. Wonderful. It was a great episode, so just take my word for it. So if I'm slightly less enthused than normal, it's because I've done this show already and spent about 45 minutes on it and then found out it's complete and utter garbage. But we're going to run back through it. I'm going to try and recreate the magic that we had. Just know it was the best episode ever. It was incredible. Bryce Harper called in. Kyle Schwarber was here. He was in my house with me. Just take my word for it. Like it was incredible. So give me the credit for doing that. Okay, where to start? Well, the Phillies took down the Washington Nationals last night, 11-0. It was a huge win. Kyle Schwarber is absolutely unbelievable. He won the National League Player of the Month last month, and that was for June, which he always lights it up in June. Well, July has been no different so far for Kyle Schwarber. Hits 2 home runs last night. The first one, a bomb to center field, about like 413. The next one, a bomb to right field, about 431, a towering shot. Those are the first 2 runs of the game. And just like that, the Phillies are up 2-0 in the 3rd inning. You got a bunch more runs. JT Realmuto went yard. Nick Castellanos had a bunch of RBIs. Alec Boehm had a couple of RBIs. And all of a sudden, it's 11-0 Phillies by the end of the 6th inning. They absolutely tattooed Paolo Espino, who threw for the Washington Nationals. Christopher Sanchez, who went for the Philadelphia Phillies, went 5 full innings, only gave up 2 hits. He gave up a couple of walks and didn't strike out too many, but he did what you're looking for someone to do in a spot start role. Now, the Phillies are looking really, really good offensively. Kyle Schwarber's on another planet still. He's not a human being. I think he deserves to be in the All-Star game based on just the last month's worth of games, which is wild to say. But he's been too talented to not be. And I kind of don't want to see him in the home run derby in case it messes with his swing at all. But he's incredible. Can't say enough about what Kyle Schwarber's doing. What he did this past month is similar to what Bryce Harper did down the stretch last year. Now, Bryce was also hitting for average while doing it. Kyle Schwarber doesn't really hit for average, but he does walk a bunch, so he'll get on base. But the average doesn't look obviously as nice as what Bryce Harper normally holds above a 300 average. Schwarber's still right around like the 218 mark, I think, average-wise. But, man, his power numbers can't be denied. And he looked incredible in the game. Nick Castellanos, a couple big hits, had a double in the right center gap. He had a 2 RBI broken bat single over the first baseman's head with 2 outs. Just got over Josh Bell over there at first base. It was a great performance for him. Here's something I want to talk about with JT Realmuto. He seemed like he was seeing the ball well. He'd run into a couple of home runs, and I'm talking about recently, but they looked like, he just ran into one. He's just swinging hard in the middle of the zone and the ball's hitting his bat. Last night was one of those, and maybe it's because the Nationals don't have a great pitching staff. That might be even an overstatement. But he was seeing fastballs well. He was waiting on breaking balls well. He was having a really good approach at the plate. And he left the yard the opposite way, which kind of shows you when you're staying through the ball like that you are having a really, really good approach at the plate. It looks like something is clicking for JT Realmuto. So if you think about it, and Kyle Schwarber stays this hot. Rhys Hoskins, who's been incredibly hot, stays that way. JT starts to hit up to his ability, and Nick Castellanos starts to hit up to his ability. And then you have guys like Alec Bohm and Bryson Stott and Mickey Moniak and guys like that to fill in the cracks down near the bottom of the order. Man, I mean, this team is going to be dangerous even without Bryce Harper and Gene Segura. And hopefully you'll get those guys back in late August, early September for a playoff push. And that puts you in a great spot to take advantage of a stretch run, an easier schedule. We'll talk about that coming up in the next segment. All of that stuff plays into the Phillies' advantage. Now, they've got another spot start coming up from Bailey Falter tomorrow night. Not tonight. We'll talk about tonight's game in a second. But they're going to have to withstand the storm of a tough stretch here with a couple games against the Cardinals, some games against the Blue Jays, some more games against the Mets. It's not an easy road to the All-Star break yet, but you got 2 more games against the Nationals. You got a chance to extend a lead over the Cardinals, which they do have a lead right now, the Phillies in the 3rd wild card spot, technically. But it's a great opportunity and a great time for the offense to be firing on all cylinders. Now, the previous episode that didn't have any audio, I ran through the Nationals lineup and basically said, yeah, there's not really that many major league hitters in this lineup. Josh Bell's one of them. Maybe Lance Thomas might be one of them up at the top. But there aren't really that many guys that you're worried about. Cesar Hernandez is okay, but their best players outside that aren't playing. Their best players that aren't playing, Juan Soto and Nelson Cruz, both unavailable for last night's game. Yeah, that makes a huge difference. So I don't want to put too much stock in what Christopher Sanchez did. It was nice in a vacuum. The Phillies still have a lot they're going to have to fight over in order to get to where they want to go. But last night, to get to the halfway point, well, they proved, yeah, we can beat up on these bad teams that we're going to see a bunch of down the stretch. And it's got them in position to be a playoff team. Coming up, we're going to talk about the standings and everything. Tonight, the matchup, though, real quick, I do want to let you know, Aaron Nola, Josiah Gray, tonight at Citizens Bank Park. Interesting matchup. No word yet if Soto or Cruz are going to be available in this one. Cruz was a last-second scratch. Soto had been dealing with an issue with some soreness. I think it was his calf that was having a bit of soreness. And the Nationals have no reason to hurt Juan Soto or to play him partially like ailing because they're not winning anything this year. They're not competing for anything. So hopefully he's okay, but also hopefully they're cautious and hold him out for the rest of the series. Both of them. That would be great. But not a great lineup from the Nationals, a great performance from the Phillies, and that amounts to an 11-0 win like we saw. Well, it's been a wild first half, but at the first half mark, we've got a playoff spot in Philadelphia that the Phillies currently hold. I'll talk to you about the standings next, and we'll break down where they stand as far as the NL wild card and the NL East. First, though, I want to tell you about Blue Nile. So head to BlueNile.com. If it's time to find that forever piece to pop the question to your special lady, you got to head to Blue Nile. I had a bunch of friends get engaged this weekend, 3 of them in the course of like 24 hours. It's that time of year. So if you're thinking about popping the question, head on over to Blue Nile, and you can BlueNile.com rather. They have simple online tools that let you pick out the size, clarity, shape, setting style, all the stuff you need to make your engagement ring one of a kind and personalized for her. You've got special on-hand jewelry experts. They can give you advice on what to pick out. They can help you set everything up the way you want it, or rather, she wants it. They're on hand 24/7. They're available via phone, or you can do web chat. And they can help you find a memorable gift at every budget. We're not just talking engagement rings here. We're talking about fine everyday jewelry like earrings, necklaces, rings, stuff like that, bracelets, anything that you want to get your special someone. As far as fine everyday jewelry, they do that too. So make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Sports listeners are going to get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. And that offer includes engagement. You just use code LOCKED ON. That's code LOCKED ON. And plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. So shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. All right, let's talk standings because the Philadelphia Phillies currently find themselves in a playoff spot. Well, technically they do. Right now, the Philadelphia Phillies are 43-38. That puts them 5 games over 500, if my math is correct, which it rarely is. But in this case, I went ahead and I checked it, double checked it before we came on because I did the episode already. Wonderful. I love still thinking about that. It's driving me insane, but that's okay. And the St. Louis Cardinals are actually just behind them because the St. Louis Cardinals are, let me do the math, 44-39, which means their win percentage is .001 less than where the Phillies currently stand. Now, when everything's said and done, obviously those numbers will even out and it'll be more comparable. There won't be 1 game ahead, 1 game behind, anything like that. We'll have the actual 162 played. But if the season ended today, your Philadelphia Phillies would be the third wild card team in the National League, joining the Atlanta Braves and the San Diego Padres. Now, all of this could shift around. There's some teams close. The Phillies and Cardinals are in a virtual tie. Technically, it is a tie right now. The Phillies just have the tiebreaker by a .001%. Then you have them being chased by, well, the Marlins are creeping up. Wow, look at that. The San Francisco Giants are hanging right there. Now, the Giants have been falling off lately, but some interesting teams in the mix as far as the NL wildcard spots. Really, the way I see it, you're really looking at the Cardinals, maybe the Brewers, depending on what goes on in that division and how that whole race shakes out. And the San Francisco Giants are the teams that you really have to keep an eye on if you're the Philadelphia Phillies. In the division, the Phillies are still 7 games back of the New York Mets. But hey, 7 games back is not bad considering where the Phillies started and where the Mets started. The Braves are actually threatening the Mets for the division lead. So we'll see if the NL East is still in play. If the Mets completely collapse, now they've got Scherzer and DeGrom coming back. That'll give them a large boost the rest of the way, and I don't see the Phillies catching the Mets. But when we look at strength of schedule, because we've looked at it in the past, it's important to take a peek at how the strength of schedule breaks out for each of these teams the Phillies are going to be competing with to tell if they have the advantage over any of them on the remainder of the schedule as that shakes out. Now, 81 games remaining to get us to 162. And with 81 games remaining, I'm just talking for the Phillies, of course, some of these other teams may have a couple more, may have a couple less. The Phillies have the 4th easiest schedule in baseball the rest of the way. Yeah, they've got like a .478 winning percentage for the remainder of their combined opponents. Here's the tough news. The Cardinals have the 2nd easiest schedule the rest of the way. And that's because, well, their division has the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Cincinnati Reds, the Chicago Cubs, and they get to see all these teams a bunch of times still. And that gives the Cardinals the advantage because those teams are all terrible. But hey, the Phillies get to see them too, and that is why the Phillies have the 4th easiest schedule, plus a bunch of games against the Nationals, some games against the Marlins, who, despite being the Phillies' boogeyman over the past couple of seasons, are beatable. All of this says, okay, Phillies, you have no excuse to not play really well down the stretch. Now, the Cardinals may play better, but hey, maybe you end up catching the Padres. Maybe the Braves fall apart a little bit at the end. They've been really hot, and they're still only 4-some games up on you guys. So, hey, keep winning games you're supposed to win. Take advantage of the bad opponents you play the rest of the way. And the Phillies could very well find themselves ending a 10-year playoff drought. It'll be 10 years plus at that point because technically this season will have gone by and we'll be waiting almost 11 full years for them to get in the playoffs. But hey, we will take it if they make it in. Keep an eye on it and see what the Phillies can do the rest of the way. But I feel really good about the second half for this team. Now, I told you in previous episodes, I'm not sure if you remember, but the Mets have one of the easier schedules in baseball too. Well, they had one of the easier schedules in baseball. They went through one of the easiest stretches recently, and they struggled a little bit. They have the 9th easiest schedule in baseball now too. They're still in the top third of easiest schedules in Major League Baseball, but before they were 5th. Now they've got some tougher opponents remaining, and they haven't really distanced themselves all that much. I don't think a Mets collapse is coming, but I can't totally rule it out. And because of the strength of schedule differences, you may be looking at the division still being in play. I'm going to monitor the situation. Here's how I think we should handle it. Monitor the situation until like end of July and then reevaluate. Not really keep an eye on the Mets or anything. Just And maybe at the end of every week, be like, okay, well, the Phillies are now 6 games back, or the Phillies dropped to 8 games back. Just keep an eye on that. I wouldn't expect any big moves or big makeups of games over the rest of this month, but it's a situation that where in previous episodes I've said the NL East is out of the question. I still think it is, but there's signs that show that the Mets may be falling back, not just to the Atlanta Braves, but to the pack, including the Phillies, including the Miami Marlins. I again, I don't think it's going to happen, but the strength of schedule and the recent games and everything like that says that it's at least a possibility. The lead that the Mets have on the Phillies right now, well, the Phillies made that up in like 17 games back in 2007. So anything is possible when it comes to the New York Mets and collapsing, but we're more focused on the wild card. And right now, the Phillies are in that third and final wild card spot with a favorable schedule to extend that lead, especially if they can take care of business against the St. Louis Cardinals when they play them in a 4-game series in St. Louis later this week. All of these things, good things for the Phillies, though. And it really sets them up well for a strong second half for manager Rob Thompson, an offense firing on all cylinders, a pitching staff that needs some help, but a bullpen that's been better. The bullpen last night, a combination of Juris Familia, Andrew Bellotti, Mark Appel, gave up no runs, I think only one hit and a couple of walks. So it was good work by them. The bullpen has been strong. And again, I know the lineup wasn't great for Washington, but the bullpen isn't great for Philly. Mark Appel, man, he's been great since coming up. So we're looking like we've got something brewing here in Philadelphia. A long way to go, but at the halfway point, yeah, playoff spot is in our grasp and hopefully will remain in the grasp of the team when everything's said and done in October. But I want to see what you think about that, you, the fan. So, on Off the Poll, we have Off the Poll coming up where I'll respond to the poll question I put out in yesterday's episode, and we'll discuss the second half and what you voted for the Phillies' second half performance and what's likely there. I'll tell you about all that when we wrap up today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Now, let me ask you something. Are gas prices high where you live? Of course they are. It's a rhetorical question. They're high everywhere. You're already spending so much money in gas. So I can't have you spending so much money more than what you need to on auto parts. Your car is a sinkhole these days when it comes to gas prices. Don't add to that by using any other company besides Rock Auto. There's an ever-increasing number of makes, models, and different types of cars out there. No way for your brick and mortar store on the corner to keep up with all that. That's why you got to go to rockauto.com for the best parts available to do maintenance, upkeep, improvements, everything on your car, truck, van, whatever you're driving around. Listen, you can save time and money because when you don't use Rock Auto, you could be spending 30%, 50%, even 100% more on the same exact parts. You don't need those markups right now. The economy's tough. Listen, Rock Auto is a family business. They've been serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. They've seen recessions. They've seen depressions. They know how it goes, and they know how to keep in business and keep serving people like you who need to upkeep their car on a budget, find the best prices, all of that good stuff. They're great with it. Go explore their easy-to-use website if you don't believe me. You'll find out in just a second how easy, how cheap, how great it is to use rockauto.com. So go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck and write Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box so they know we sent you in. Oh, my goodness. They're so good. They've got an amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. That's rockauto.com. All right, so we ran a poll for Off the Poll. If you're not familiar, it's where we ask a poll question on Twitter. You get a chance to respond. I get an idea of what the fan base is thinking at any given time. This week's Off the Poll question, the Phillies end their first half tonight. Of course, this was asked yesterday against the Nationals. They're 42-38 right now. Now we know they improved to 43-38. But the question was, how do they perform in the second half? And you had 3 options: a better second half, a worse second half, or about the same. A bunch of people answered this one. And man, I'm totally in agreement with the majority here. So only 4% said a worse second half was coming. Interesting. That's a minimal amount. I imagine there were more people who looked at Bryce Harper being hurt, Gene Segura being hurt, Ranger Suarez and Zach Eflin breaking down and saying, man, this could be worse. But with the hold that they were in with Joe Girardi, I get why only 4% of people said that. 23% of people said about the same. So That means 27% of people are saying worse or about the same, leaving 73% of you who responded to our poll saying they're going to have a better second half. I completely agree. The schedule's easier in the second half than it was in the first. This team's playing better, significantly better. They have a manager they can trust. They've got a lot of games against the Washington Nationals and Miami Marlins rather than the New York Mets and Atlanta Braves. They play the Cubs still, the Pirates still, the Reds still. It should be a better second half based on schedule alone, and they're also playing much better baseball than they did to start out the season. They had a month and change there where this team looked like they weren't going to come remotely close to the playoffs. Now, if you want to say about the same because of the loss of Bryce Harper and not knowing when he's going to be back and the trouble with the pitching staff and everything like that, okay, I can't totally fault you on that, but I lean much more towards the better second half. And the 4% of you who said worse second half, those got to be some Mets fans or something that follow us, because there's no way the Phillies have a worse second half considering how they started this season under Joe Girardi. So, listen, we're in agreement, and I hope we're right. They had a good start last night with an 11-0 win over the Nationals. Hopefully, they started out for real, because that was just to get them to the halfway point. Hopefully, game 82 tonight is even better. I don't know how it could be even better, but you never know. When you play a team like the Nationals, you could beat them badly any night because of the talent they trot out there. So, hey, there's no walkover wins. You can't just pencil in wins, but this should be another one tonight if they take care of business. Let's hope they do, and let's hope they have a better second half and end up in the playoffs. That's all for Locked On Phillies for today. Hopefully the audio recorded for this, and I don't have to do this again for you. I want to thank you for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On MLB Prospects. Lindsey Crosby, who hosts that, is awesome. Knows prospects inside and out. The MLB draft is coming up. If you want the latest on all the draft news and who your team could look to select, go check out Locked On MLB Prospects. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. Hopefully another win tonight for the Phillies. They play tonight, and then an afternoon game tomorrow at 4:05 at Citizens Bank Park. We'll preview all of that tomorrow morning on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.